Hello again. In this video I thought we'd take a look and listen to the ways we can affect the sound of the guitar without using effects pedals or anything like that, just using the controls that's on the guitar itself, like pickup selectors, volume and tone controls. Okay, now I've done some other videos talking a little bit more detail about the way the pickups affect the sound and so on, so I'm not going to get too into the detail on pickups so much here. But look at the way we can use the controls to change the sound. Okay. Let's start off with, this is just the basic bridge humbucker on my Thompson signature guitar. Clean guitar sound. That's quite pleasing. What you're hearing there is both coils of the bridge humbucker working together to give you that slightly fuller humbucker sound. On this guitar, however, I've got some options where I can actually split these pickups in half. So rather than hearing both coils working together as a humbucker, flick that switch. Here I get a thinner sound. What I'm doing there is called coil tapping, sometimes called coil splitting, where taking one of the coils out there and only using one coil. So we'll lose the humbucker effect and get a brighter sound. It's a little bit of a drop in volume when we do that, but the sound brightens up a little bit. So that's one way we're going to change the sound of the guitar, by using coil tapping. More common way you'll see using switches on the guitar that change the sound that you get with the pickups is just using this switch down here, the pickup selector. The pickup selector basically decides which pickup is going to be used to channel the signal out down the cable and into the amp. So here I've got the bridge humbucker, both coils now. Flick the switch to the middle position, it's a three-way switch. Middle position, I get the bridge and the neck humbucker together. Here's a fuller sound. Flick that switch again to the next position. Again, getting fuller as we go towards the neck compared to the bridge pickup. Neck pickup on its own. More bassy, more rounded sort of sound. And that's the way we can control the sound that we get with the guitar. So switching the bridge pickup in, we'll get something that's quite good for like lead picking and more biting sort of sound. Want something a bit more rounded, a bit more mellow, switch to the neck pickup. Okay, one more pickup switching trick I'll show you is something I've got wired in on this guitar. It's a bit less common, but we've got both pickups engaged. So middle three-way selector in the number 2 position, both pickups. I've got a switch down here which reverses the phase of one of the pickups. So this is the normal sound. And this is it, with the phase reversal switch engaged. That phase switching option is a little less common. You will see it on some electric guitars though. Okay, so moving on from the switches around the pickups, let's look at the tone control. Now this is quite an underused control on an electric guitar for a lot of guitarists, to be honest, sometimes myself included. It's a control that just tends to get turned up to 10 and it stays there, and that's the sound of the guitar. The guitar with the tone control up full. But you can get some great variations in sound just by giving that tone knob a bit of a tweak. This is the guitar with the bridge pickup on its own and the tone control turned up full. And that's with the tone control right the way down. So that gives you a bit of variety. It's another way of changing the sound of the guitar. And if you've got a guitar that's only got one pickup in the bridge, but you've got a tone control, you can use that to give you the more mellow sound that you might normally get from switching to the neck pickup, if a neck pickup selector is not available to you. Lastly, possibly the most underused control on an electric guitar, and that's the volume control. Now, for the vast majority of guitarists, the volume control is almost misdesigned. It's a knob, but for guitarists it could just be a switch, because there's only really two settings for it. It's up full because you're playing a song, or it's way down the bottom because you're taking a break between songs and you don't want sound from the guitar to go to the amp. Two settings. You're missing so much. There's a whole load of sounds to be got between those two settings if you use the volume knob as a knob, not just as like a binary switch of full on or off. Let's turn to a dirtier sound and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so there's a dirty sound. Now these pickups are passive pickups. There's no built-in preamps like you get with EMGs or anything. This is just a stock DiMarzio tone zone pickup, so it's medium to high output. Now when we play a guitar into the dirty channel in an amplifier, or even using a distortion pedal or an overdrive pedal, where that dirt comes from, the overdrive, the distortion, it's basically the circuitry getting more signal than it can handle, and the result is that the signal starts to break up. Now the electronics in a really nice overdrive circuit on an amp are done in such a way that that sound gets very, very pleasing. You know, it's not just some random noise. But bear that in mind, this is how we get an overdriven sound. It's about putting a lot of signal into the amp. Now with a passive pickup like this, it's easy just getting in the habit of turning the volume up to 10 and getting your overdrive sound. But you can use the volume control to give you control over that without having to get into switching between a clean channel and a dirty channel, or a crunch channel and a full-on distortion channel on the amp, and without using foot pedals like overdrives and boosts and so on. I'll show you what I mean. Now if I play this full tilt, I'm getting the overdrive sound. But listen to what happens when I turn the volume down. It's getting a little bit quieter, but it's cleaning up more than it's getting quiet, if you see what I mean. So the volume control is really low down here, but I'm still getting a usable level of volume out of the guitar. And you can do that rather than setting your guitar volume right the way up full. Set it maybe it's a little bit lower, give you that nice crunchy rhythm sound. Then as you turn the volume up, there's a slight increase in volume, but the real difference is the amount of drive that you get. So if you think about it, you're playing the guitar with just enough signal to drive the amp, and then when you turn the volume up, you're really opening the taps, giving it a bit more signal and starting to overdrive. So what you hear in here, that increased, all done with the volume control. There's no boost pedals or overdrive pedals down at my feet. It's all been streamed under my hands. So there's something to think about. Experiment with getting sounds out of the guitar without resorting to effects. You know, experiment with the volume control, the tone control, pickup selectors, any other electronics that you might have on board, like coil taps and phase reversals and things like that. Your guitar has got a voice, but there's ways you can manipulate that voice and fine-tune it to give you more sounds. And having a bit of mastery of these controls is really useful. As with anything on your guitar, the volume and tone controls and the switches, they're just component parts, and different guitars use different quality parts. The potentiometers, because that's what's actually behind the knob for the volume and the tone, potentiometer, sometimes called pots for short. If you've got a cheaper pot, the quality tends to suffer, so you might find that when you're using it you get little pops and crackles, the sound might drop out a little bit. It's usually a sign that the pot's starting to get a bit worn. or the feel of the pot mightn't be quite so good. It might be really stiff. You don't want something that's so stiff you really have to work at moving it. But likewise, you don't want something that's so slack that the slightest touch is going to knock it. You want some sort of happy medium, so it'll stay put, but it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to change the volume of the tone. You know, the component parts, they're reasonably easy to replace. If you're handy with a soldering iron, you can easily do that yourself. If you come to replace them, don't go for real budget. Don't cut corners, because they're not that expensive to replace, or to upgrade if you want to get something a bit better. When I built my Bitzer telly, the one that's down there, I got some high-end pots for that, make called CTS. They're quite a well-respected brand. Those potentiometers, I think they were about £4, something like, probably change out for about £5. That's $7 or $8 each. Compared to a budget budget potentiometer might have been, say, £3. It's about $5, something like that. So there's not a whole lot of difference in price if you just look at that. It's less than the price of a beer between buying the cheap pots or the expensive pots. And the more expensive pots are much better value, because they will give you better sound and they'll last longer and feel better. So it's one of those places where you don't want to be cutting corners. Okay, so that's all for now. I hope you found that useful, and I'll see you in another video soon. Bye for now.